Good morning, children. Today we are going to start a new chapter, that is transport in plants. Children, you know plants require water and food for the growth. So for its normal functioning, two internal transport is there. Now water and minerals which is absorbed from the soil by the roots, this is transported throughout the plant body. This is called transport of water and minerals, and the food which is manufactured in the leaf by the process of photosynthesis, it is carried to all the living parts of the plant and it is known as translocation of food. Now the substances which are transported in vascular plants, they are water, mineral nutrients, organic nutrients and plant growth hormones. They are transported throughout the plant body for a short and both long distances. Now their direction of transportation. Now plants show two types of direction, unidirectional and multidirectional or bidirectional. Unidirectional transport is done through xylem vessels because it is always in unidirectional. It occurs as upward flow of water from roots to stem, and absorption of mineral nutrients and movement of these mineral nutrients, it is done by multidirectional transport. Now this water which is absorbed in the plants, it should be carried out throughout the plant body. So there are two types of transport mechanisms which are found in vascular plants. Transport over short distances and transport over long distances or bulk transport. So short distances means the movement of molecules within the cell, across the cell membranes and from cell to cell within the tissue. Now this does not require any energy. So this is done by diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis, imbibition, or when energy is used, then it is by active transport. Now transport over long distances or bulk transport, it is the movement of substances from one place of the plant body to the other part of the plant body, and it is carried out to all the plant of the parts of the plant from root hair till the top tip of the shoot. So transport over long distances, it can be done by special type of cells or vascular system. They are known as the xylem and phloem. Now this long distance transportation is also known as bulk transportation, and the bulk movement of substances through vascular system in plants, it is known as translocations. So let us start with transportation over short distances or cell to cell movement. Now this cell to cell movement is done by following processes through passive transport or diffusion, facilitated diffusion, or by active transport. Passive transport means, children, without energy, without the use of energy, and active transport means use of energy is there. So this passive transportation, it is done by diffusion process, and you know that diffusion, it is a slow process. It is passive in nature and it is slow process, and this diffusion is done by movement of the molecules from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration. That is, it is along the concentration gradient without any use of energy. So what are the characteristics of diffusion? Now this diffusion takes place from one part of the cell to the other part of the cell, or from over short distances, or we can say that intercellular spaces of the leaf to the outside, or from outside to inside of the cell. Some other characteristics of diffusion are that it is not dependent on the living system. That means diffusion does not depend on living system, and the process continues till the molecules on both the sides gets evenly distributed. Now diffusion also occurs in liquids and gases only, because it does not occur in solid, because liquid and gases, they show movement by the kinetic energy. So this is also known as entropy driving movement. So what are the significance of this diffusion to plants? Why this diffusion is used? Because diffusion is a process in which exchange of gases takes place. So it is very important for the plant. It means that whatever gaseous movement is there in the plant body, it is done by diffusion. You know that carbon dioxide coming inside the plant body, oxygen is going out of the plant body. So this is all done by diffusion process. Now absorbed transpiration, it also helps in the transpiration process, because in transpiration water is lost from the upper part of the plant body in the form of water vapor. So it also involves diffusion process, because as soon as this water is going out from the plant body and diffusion into the atmosphere, so rate of transpiration will be more. So diffusion also helpful in absorption, because during passive intake of the salts, the ions they are absorbed by the diffusion process. Now diffusion also helps in translocation of food. It also helps in pollination. How it also helps in pollination? Because you know that flowers, they have scent, they have aroma in it, and this aroma, when it gets diffused into the atmosphere, then the pollinating agents like insects, they come across with the flowers and they sit on the flowers, and due to this pollination occurs. Now this diffusion also results in intercellular transportation. That means in between the cell to cell, between two cells, the transportation requires diffusion. Now diffusion also helpful in distribution of water and solutes. That means whatever solutes, whatever water is absorbed by the plants, it is done by diffusion. So here comes the factors which affect rate of diffusion. That means whether the rate of diffusion increases or whether the rate of diffusion decreases. So these are the factors which helpful in rate of diffusion. Now solubility of substance in lipids. Now the substance which are soluble in lipids, that means they are hydrophobic in nature, so they diffuse readily in the lipid bilayer of cell membrane, and the substances which are not diffusing in the lipids, they are hydrophilic in nature, they cannot pass through this lipid layer. Now the size of the molecules also gets the rate of diffusion, because if the size of the molecules they are high or greater, then they are not able to pass through the pores. So diffusion process will also get affected. Now charged molecules. Now these charged molecules and ions, they passes through the ionophores or the charged channels. Now these small uncharged and polar molecules, they can diffuse through this bilipid layer. Now concentration gradient. Now molecules and ions which are moving along the cell membrane through the concentration gradient, that is from the higher region to the lower region, they pass through this concentration gradient from the cell membrane. Now temperature, it also helpful in the rate of diffusion. So increase in temperature, it leads to rate of diffusion. It also increases because it increases the kinetic energy of the diffusion particles. Now density of diffusion substances. Now the rate of diffusion, it is inversely proportional. That means if the density increases, then the rate of diffusion also decreases. If the density decreases, then the rate of diffusion increases. So now this larger molecules, so this is known as Graham's law of diffusion. So what is it? The rate of diffusion inversely proportional to the square root of density of the diffusing substance. Now this is known as Graham's law of diffusion. Now density of the diffusion medium, it also affects the rate of diffusion. Now higher the density of diffusion medium, lowers the rate of diffusion. Okay. Now gas molecules, you know, they diffuse rapidly as fast in a vacuum rather than the air. So rate of diffusion, it is also inversely proportional to the density of diffusing medium. Now diffusion pressure gradient or DPG. Now DPG, it also develops by the concentration of diffusing substance. Now the higher is the difference in the concentration of diffusing substance, the to solution, the higher will be the diffusion process or the diffusion pressure gradient. Now this rate of diffusion, it is directly proportional to the diffusion pressure gradient and inversely proportional to the distance between the two. So here is the diagram, children, which shows the rate of diffusion or the different mechanism of diffusion. Now here see, this is a simple diffusion. Okay, this is a cell membrane. Okay, now this cell membrane, outer cell membrane, inner cell membrane, and direct diffusion is going on from inside to outside, from outside to inside. Now some facilitated diffusion channels are also there, and these facilitated diffusion channels, they are known as channel protein. So here see this channel protein is there, and through this channel protein macromolecules they are entering inside this cell membrane. Now through some other carrier proteins are also there in the cell membrane, and these carrier proteins, once they get this diffusion particles inside it, then it makes that diffusion particles according to the size, and then it transfer this particle to the inside of the cell membrane or to the intercellular spaces. So this cell membrane, they have the channel proteins and the carrier proteins, and which are meant for the absorption of the macromolecules or the ions which are, or the charged ions which are not diffused through the direct diffusion. Okay. Now next is facilitated. So this facilitated diffusion, children. Now this facilitated diffusion we'll learn in next class. Okay. Thank you and have a nice day.